Hello again. This is 5 Minutes with KeRusso. And we're on our journey to understand this letter that Paul wrote to these disciples who lived a long time ago in a different part of the world. Surely there's something there for us because God saved this letter and had it preserved in this book we call the Bible. Well, part of understanding what it has to say to us takes into account the historical setting of why that letter was even written. Now, last week I spent some time with you talking about how you can actually read the letter and just find historical statements contained within that document itself to begin to give you a picture of what's going on, why that letter was written, what was happening to Paul, what was happening to those disciples that he was writing to. What I want to do today is flesh that picture out a little bit more by giving you showing you how these statements in the letter, like exhortations and encouragements and even commands, can also give you historical understanding to the letter. Now, let me give you just an example. Say you were going to worship at a church on a Sunday morning, and you're listening to the preacher as he preaches from the Bible, and he gives you an encouragement, the whole church an encouragement, and he says, I'm telling you, do not be liars. Well, why is he saying that? Well, it could be it's just because God doesn't want people being liars, and he's teaching from a text that talks about not lying. Or it could be that particular church has a problem with lying. Well, don't know. It could be either way. But if he keeps on sermon after sermon after sermon talking about not lying, then you start to get a sense, okay, there's something going on here that we need to address because maybe there's a problem with us. Well, the same thing with the letter of Philippians. You read these, identify these exhortations, these encouragements, and it may give you Paul's just encouraging them to live as God tells people to live. Or he may be addressing something that's going on in that particular church. So that's why I want to highlight this stuff. So what I've done is I've written down the exhortations, the encouragements, the commands that I found. I'm just going to read through them, compare it with the notes that you've made, and see if it starts to build a picture for you of what's going on in this church that Paul wrote. In chapter 1, verse 27, there's this, I just call them encouragement. Conduct yourselves in a worthy manner, standing as one. In chapter 2, verse 1 through 4. In humility, consider others and their interests first. In verse 5 through 8 of the same chapter, be like Jesus, who humbled himself even though it cost him his life. And in chapter 2, verse 12, continue to work out your salvation. 2:14, do everything without grumbling or arguing. 2:15 through 18, rejoice in trials as Paul did. 2:29, honor disciples like Epaphroditus who sacrifice themselves to help others. Chapter 3, verse 1, rejoice in the Lord. Verse 2 through 4, watch out for those pushing a teaching of circumcision. And chapter 3, verse 15, every mature disciple should be willing to give up all, suffer for their reward in Jesus. In chapter 3, verse 16, live up to what you have obtained and press forward. Chapter 3, 17, join together and follow Paul's example. Follow the example of other disciples who live likewise. 4:1, stand firm in the Lord. 4:2 through 3, disciples should help Euodia and Syntyche to have the same mind in the Lord. Chapter 4, verse 4 through 7, rejoice in the Lord, be gentle to all, don't be anxious, present requests to God in prayer. And chapter 4, verse 8, put minds on things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy. And in verse 9, put into practice what they had seen in Paul or learned from him. And in chapter 4, verse 21, greet all God's people in Christ. Those are the encouragements, the teachings, the commands, the exhortations that I found. Now, what did you find? Now, I've obviously put those in my own words. It's a good thing to do that. Put them in your own words. take these exhortations and commands and put it with historical information that you found, and see if you can put together, write a paragraph or two to describe what you have found to be the historical reason why Paul wrote that letter. What's the background? What's going on in that church? Why did Paul need to write this letter to them? That exercise of writing a couple of paragraph summary of the history of the church can give you the context to understand why Paul wrote what he wrote, the historical context. Okay? So spend some time with this, have fun with it, and let it just start to soak in what's happening. All right? Leave any comments or send an email, and be blessed. Thank you for your time.